Welcome to the REDHEADREVEAL podcast. I am Jenn Pinkerton, your Redhead host, a psychotherapist, high-performance coach, writer, and speaker. As a connection expert, I help people reveal their connectedness within relationships, transforming from the root causes of beliefs and behaviors that hold them back from thriving in life. Let's talk about how you're thriving. Okay, I'm excited because I have Steven Kaufman today, and this guy has done so many things. I feel like I have been following you. I know who you are. We are friends, but I feel like I hear about you in all these different circles from all these exciting things you're doing. And I'm just excited to have you join me today.
Thank you. I'm nervous, but thank you for having me. Hopefully I can live up to the hype.
You will. You will. You already do. CEO of Zeus Lending recognizes Houston's fastest growing companies, one of them. Named to National Mortgage Professional's 40 Under 40 list. Honored as an inaugural recipient of Houston Business Journal's Most Admired CEO Award. Received Houston Astros Hometown Hero Award, City of Houston's Humanitarian Award. I mean, need I go on?
Thanks.
So out of all these things that you're doing, tell me what defines you. What defines you based on all of this work you do? You're so creative. You're always traveling. I feel like you're really immersed in living your life to the fullest. But what defines you?
I guess that it's a very open-ended question, so I know I could go anywhere with it. But I guess it would depend on what area of my life you're asking about. Because I'm a different person, and I need to be a different person in different aspects of my life. Right, compartments of my life. So as a father, I need to be something. As a husband, I need to be something. If I were a son, I'm not a son any longer. My parents have passed, but I needed to be somebody as a son. So I guess what defines me, it really depends on the circumstance. But I guess summing all of it up, if there was a theme to it at all, I think what would define me would be the people who are around me.
Okay.
I think is what would define me.
And do you feel like you curate those people by a certain methodology? The people that you surround yourself with? Okay.
I can get into something really fun and exciting if you want. This
Go ahead.
is one of the most important philosophies of my entire life.
Oh, I love this.
I call it the law of synchronicity. Mm-hmm. Some people call it the power of the peer or peer power, or there's all sorts of names for it. Tony Robbins has the best quote I've ever heard that summarizes it, which is, the quality of your life is a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group.
Okay, say that again, because I want to make sure we hear this.
I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it slower. The quality of your life is a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group. If you remember if you have children and your children ever went to go play with other kids over a weekend and they came back and their behavior changed, that's a really good example of it.
They're affected.
They are affected. If you're an athlete and you've ever practiced with a team or an athlete that's better than you, you get much better. Michael Jordan actually at one point said he would never practice because he always wanted to practicing in the NBA when he entered the league meant you were playing with not just B-League players. You were truly playing with amateurs who were just running plays with you. He refused that and said that I only want to play with top-rated players because he realized he would become better faster by doing that. And so there's two parts of this. There's the men and women, how they both do it individually, and then how we all do it. Are you familiar with the book, The Red Tent?
No, tell me about it.
Okay, the story of the book is just, it's biblical biblical time frame. But the theme of the book is that during biblical times, all women, because they would get in their cycle at the same time, would end up going into a red tent. Is the theme of the book. Okay. The book's about the women talking in the tent. Okay. But that's synchronicity, and not in a spiritual way, but in a physics kind of way. If you are in a clock shop and you see grandfather clocks and you mess with all of their pendulums randomly, do you know in only a short matter of time they will all begin to swing in synchronicity? Again, the athlete thing, if you see swimmers, if you've ever been walking with people, if you've ever been with a lover and been having an intimate moment, you breathe with that person and your pace becomes
it's called
theirs.
Co-regulation in that way.
Okay. So there's examples of this everywhere, and we know this if you're a parent and you have children, you know it for sure, you see it in them, but adults function the same way. And the hack or the intention of this is that if you're not having results in any particular area of your life, one of the easiest and fastest and most effective ways for transforming that area of your life is selecting the peers that you're around. Because human beings are tribal, and we will change our behavior to earn the love and respect of our peers. Even adults, no matter how stubborn, if they're around someone, if we're around people, we want to be accepted. We want to be independent.
Absolutely.
And included. We don't want to be, but we don't want to be excluded.
Right.
There's a fine line, very fine line between that.
This kind of aligns with the idea of, on the negative, if we look at it, it's the guilty by association part. And on the positive, it's about surrounding yourself with people who are going to allow you to grow.
Yeah, I think the Atomic Habits guy. I'm sorry, I forgot his name right now. I think he's the one who said there are. It may not be him, but someone said there are 3-minute, 30-minute, and 3-hour people.
Yes.
And so, from a practical standpoint, it's one thing to tell somebody, "Hey, if you're not getting good results in your business, maybe you should change the peers of people you're networking with and talking to your business about." That's one thing to say that because everyone is already busy. We already feel like our schedule's full. So I heard this explained once that there are 3-minute, 30-minute, and 3-hour people. It's very easy to spend 3 hours with a 3-minute person because the 3-minute people are usually the very easiest to get along with. But they're not always the people who are getting you where you're going.
Right. It's comfortable.
It's very comfortable. Exactly. So the easiest thing to do I heard this advice and I use it, which is to examine whether I'm spending 3 hours with 3-minute people. So I don't have time for the 3-hour people, the really important relationships that can really make a big difference.
And those relationships are the one that propel you to think bigger.
Absolutely. And get you to the next step, whatever that is.
Whether you call it, growth mindset, leveling up, whatever current phrase or buzzword is, it's about the concept of we all want to be the best version of ourselves, and we don't get there independently.
Right.
And I really do believe that because I think that we're not made to be in isolation. We grow with other people, and you are kind of who you surround yourself with.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, not kinda.
It's up to you to decide how much are you going to immerse, how much you're going to absorb and emulate.
From a interpersonal or personal standpoint, I think it's Jim Rohn who said, "Tell me who your 5 closest friends are, and I'll tell you who you are."
Yes.
An important business mentor of mine when I was early in my career, he actually one time asked me, and it's from a financial perspective, you'll see why this is relevant. If your 5 closest friends, their net worth average will be your net worth in the next 5 years.
I have heard something very similar to that. And then it's an awkward thing when you start thinking for a moment, do I want to look at my friends that way? And I think I see people struggle with this sometimes about what are the values that I'm looking for in friendships. And some people will defer to, but this person's so kind or they're so nice. Okay, that's great. That serves a beautiful purpose for you to have somebody that's so kind and nice. But how do they help you grow?
Yeah, I guess I would say it like to tie it back into the 3-hour, 30-minute, 3-minute people. Those people are valuable to us because we're comfortable with them and we have history with them, and those are the most important relationships probably in our lives. However, you have to make time for the 3-hour people, and the 3-hour people in your business are people who are getting you where you're going to go. So that friend may not right now be helping you get where you're trying to go. And the truth is, what I have found is if I'm ever in that situation, I think to myself, if I ask this person if I could spend a little bit less time with them because I really have to work on something that's really important, if they are really my friend, they're going to say yes.
Absolutely. They're going to say, you do you.
Absolutely. Come back. Good friends let you go and come back.
Yes. And they encourage you to grow.
Yes, absolutely. So, the power of the peer group, really important.
I agree with that. So out of all these ventures you have so many different business ventures, real estate, finance, et cetera. Kind of what is the approach changed or different? You started maybe in one and kind of then added in more and did more. Tell me the evolution, I guess, of where your business has grown in that aspect.
It may look like I do a lot of different things, but I really don't. I have a small private equity company called Zeus Companies, and we do 3 things, 3 pillars. We invest in real estate debt, mainly through a company called ZeusLending.com that we own. We invest through, which you referenced in the introduction. We invest in the acquisition, development of commercial assets. That's our biggest portfolio. It's about $700 million in assets. And the third pillar is our healthcare company, Zeus Healthcare, which owns the operating company of some small outpatient services that we have as tenants in some of our property. Those 3 things are the only thing I do.
But did you start off with one first and then grow into that? I
started as a real estate investor first. Okay. And I was also an accountant during the day, finishing my accounting degree at night. I was 20. I started buying rental properties because
Smart move.
I went to looking back, yes. I went to a real estate conference. I got inspired and I put it into action. And I owned a few properties before I was 21. Still trying to get my degree at night, going to night school at University of Houston, Cougs, and working in public accounting. And then I realized that between the projects I was doing in real estate, someone came to me and asked me if they could borrow money because they thought I had money. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. But I knew somebody else who did. And so I asked that person if I could borrow some money, secured by some real estate. I lent to this person. And that was the beginning of our note buying business.
It's an interesting story.
And I just started doing them both simultaneously. And then about 10 years ago, I was invited to participate in an emergency room investment here in Houston. And it grew and it's just grown. That's how I entered the healthcare space.
Okay.
But that's all I do. I try to... you know that old country saying, you got to dance with the one who brung you.
Yes.
I think it's smart to stick with what got you successful. And though I'm on the road to success in my mind, I think changing too often or changing at all would be silly once you have a certain amount of foothold in whatever you're doing. And lastly, I would say there's a wealth proverb that goes something like this: you make money by concentration and you keep it by diversification. Mm-hmm. And so I'm still trying to make it, so I'm concentrating.
I think you've made it. I think your success speaks for itself.
It's all relative.
So for someone who maybe is starting out in maybe real estate investing, what would be something you would tell them?
Many things. First and most importantly, there's a Chinese proverb that goes something like this: the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. The second best time? Today. So you don't, in real estate, if you're thinking about it, you don't wait and buy real estate. You buy real estate and wait.
Yes.
And so you have to move quickly to buy it. It's the cheapest it's going to be in your life right now.
That's right.
There's an illusion that you're going to wait for a sale. There's not a sale coming.
There's never a sale coming.
This is the cheapest it's going to be. So if you want it, you got to go buy it. And if you're looking for a transaction that makes money, obviously, even today is still the cheapest it's ever going to be.
I agree with that. You have a lot of recognition for charitable work and different sort of philanthropic endeavors. What drives your passion to balance that?
In 2008, I was seeing what was going on in the economy, and I was just what was happening with families, unemployment. It was 2008, 2009, and I thought I've been very blessed. But looking around at what people were dealing with, even my companies were thriving during that time. And I looked back and realized I have not really given anything to the universe for this. I've not said thank you in a monetary way. So I got very aggressive about doing philanthropic work and donating money. My motivation for that is basically to say thank you for the blessings that I've gotten. I won't be able to do justice. I couldn't give away all your money and my money and everyone else's money to thank God.
Right, but it's the concept of paying forward. It's the concept of acknowledging it, right?
It's sending, I don't know who said this phrase originally, but I like to send the elevator back down. It's why I like to mentor young adults who are thinking about, which career direction to make, or seasoned professionals who are struggling in parts of their business. I love doing that for people because so many people have done that for me in my career.
Well, and it also has to give you a lot out of that too, because you have the feeling of, being able to have that compassion for somebody else and having the wisdom and expertise that maybe somebody doesn't yet possess.
True. Thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm. I'll say if any of your listeners are not so keen on philanthropy or giving, but are more interested in their business right now, mm-hmm. A friend of mine who's very wealthy said to me some time ago, we were talking about someone being a really giving philanthropist and how it's really exciting that when someone gets really wealthy that they start getting into philanthropy, similar to the story that I said. And he said something really interesting. He said, that's just that's the scenario we tell ourselves, but how do you know that philanthropists just don't become rich?
Oh, that's a really interesting way to look at that.
Yes. So if anyone's... How do we know that philanthropists don't just become rich?
That's true.
Yes.
So maybe they all along had this idea to be very altruistic and really want to give back, and then maybe utilize that in a professional, focused way to then become successful having that foundation.
Yeah, Warren Buffett, I think, said the best way to help your family is to go make a lot of money.
True.
Yeah. So if anyone's not thinking about philanthropy because they are focused on their business and they don't feel like they have the means to give, this would be a good example of why maybe you should do it.
I think that's a really good one. I like that. Now, as a psychotherapist and somebody that has a great, interest in psychoeducation and psychology, I love knowing that you have a PhD in performance psychology. Tell me about that.
About 2015, I had not been in school for a while. I grew up really poor, and I dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. I didn't finish the 9th grade of high school because none of my siblings did either. They didn't finish high school. They all went to work, so I went to work. And then a few years later, when I was 17, I realized I have to go to college. So I've been in college, and I equate college to success. And in 2015, I thought, I really love psychology. I have the time. Let's go get a PhD in psychology. And so I did. It took 5.5 years. It was torturous, truly.
I'm in my PhD right now, so I concur, and I get it.
Gosh.
I'm almost done.
Like I said, I've said many times I wouldn't do it. If I would midway through, I would have not done it. But
agree with that as well.
Very expensive and very torturous. Not like any other schooling I've ever done. I have 2 master's degrees and 2 bachelor's degrees, and I don't, or a bachelor's degree and a minor, and I would not do that. But I did it because I was committed to the process, and I was doing it not for career reasons, but more from the education reasons.
Like personal fulfillment too.
Yes, absolutely. Personal development, fulfillment, being able to help people, understanding for myself. And it's not a clinical psychology degree. It's a performance-oriented degree. And particularly regarding teams and teams of 2 people, even in a relationship or a music band or a sports team or even an army. So just how do teams perform and not perform? Incidentally, the real research that I did, which is just how the universe works. I studied virtual teams and their performance. We took my research and in 2018 and 2019 tried to get it published. And I was rejected by 3 different major academic publishers.
This is pre-pandemic.
And in August of 2020, 2 of the 3 of them called me back.
I bet, because now there's a whole different viewpoint on it.
They said in 2018, 2019, there is no demand for virtual team education.
Wow.
And we were ahead of it. We thought for sure this is going on. And the conclusion of all the research, summarizing my dissertation is this. The number one thing that makes teams successful is trust, and the number one thing that breaks all teams apart is trust.
I really think that's kind of profound in this way, that how often do people really acknowledge, though, that trust is that important? I think that if people are not trustworthy, or if people have not had good experiences trusting, then they're going to be less likely to provide the emphasis on that.
That's really good. That's fascinating. Yeah,
but it makes sense to me.
It does, because you would not want to emphasize it because you don't know if you can trust the person. You want to see if you can trust them.
Exactly.
That's lovely.
But the blind faith of trust is actually the thing that's going to propel you to work in tandem with someone else.
So what does that person do? I'm not. This is for me. I'm getting my free 45 minutes.
I don't know. I mean, as I'm thinking this through, is what you're saying.
I'm not. I definitely have trust issues for people. So
I would have to say, what was the origin point
I think
for
it's
that?
my mother.
Your mother. Okay.
Yeah, truly.
Okay.
So in a relationship where I may not trust someone, in particular a female.
Yes.
Would it be better for me to acknowledge that, or to go in with the intention of just trusting and risking that there's not a break of trust?
Well, I think in any relationship, there's a level of risk no matter what. That's just inherent by the sheer fact that we're going to have to be vulnerable, or you're not going to be able to form a relationship. Without vulnerability, it won't ever thrive. That's the limitation.
You don't think you can be vulnerable and trustworthy or untrusting?
I think that part of trusting is being vulnerable. I don't think you can have one without the other. I think it requires a sense of, I'm going to maybe put down my walls, my protective parts that are working against me, and try to function as the adult Steven instead of the child Steven, to be able to recognize either things that I have in my head, in my psyche, the stories I'm telling myself, the narratives I'm working with, and I want to look at that differently and choose to do that differently based on this person that I want to be vulnerable and trust.
Great. You're welcome. Okay.
But I like it. I do like what you're saying about trust in tandem. And I think this is amazing. So are you going to have this work published that you did and be able to put it out in that way?
You know what? We got very busy during COVID. Most of our business is countercyclical to the economy. So when the economy is not doing so well, we're doing better. And so like 2008 in that example. So during COVID, our business was booming. And so no, I rejected them. I did my work's published with ProQuest. Anybody can find it, but no, I didn't.
Psychotherapy is the same way. In times of great difficulty in the world, psychotherapy businesses run really well. It's the same kind of aspect of that.
People act like
people need a lot of help.
Yeah.
Truly. So you studied at Harvard and Oxford. I mean, I got to say, I was really impressed by that. How important do you think continuing learning on that path is for someone like yourself?
I think if you're a lifelong learner like I am, I think it's a matter of just where I'm putting my attention. I don't think everyone's a lifelong learner academically. I think some people dislike that. I'm the kind of person that gravitates towards that because I love the structure of it.
Ditto, right here.
It's just structured. You tell me what to do, I get to do it and learn. Okay, perfect. I'm on autopilot. Because most of the rest of my life, I'm not on autopilot. I like that structure. I respect people who don't and want to have their experience learned on the court, not in the stands. I respect that. I'm doing that every day. So I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds. I'm living life.
Have your cake and eat it too.
Yes, I'm living life and I'm getting the academic approach versus just having lived experience. So I think it's important for me. I think it's important for my daughters to be a good example of a lifelong learner and to grow while they're growing. Not that I can help them with their high school math anymore, but
it is something, isn't it? That high school math. It's definitely not the way it was when I was in school.
Exactly. I think lifelong learning is very important, and I think psychotherapy, as a matter of fact, and I think group education, like academic education, is really valuable. But I also seek the counsel. I think it's very, very, very important to seek the counsel of even an individual coach or therapist. I cannot even in my early. I'm 47. It was in my early 20s when I first started speaking, just to a coach or a mentor, and it's paid gigantic dividends in my life. Like, if you're not doing that, you're crazy. It's really...
Well, everyone needs a level of support, and that varies over different times in your life, what kind of support you might need. But I think we can all out, just do it alone, just kind of, raw dog it through life, I don't think is a great approach.
I think, can you do that? Yes, of course you can do it. People are doing it every day, but are you living the life that you want?
Right, to thrive.
Right. And that having the counsel of somebody is just so valuable. And I think a lot of people have tried therapy before. And we don't have to get deep into this, but it's an important part of my life, not because I have a psychology PhD, but because I believe in the value of the therapy or of the coaching or the mentorship.
Love hearing that.
And so, and there everything from an executive coach to a mentor, it's who you need in your life at that time. And I forgot where I was going with that.
You were talking about your experience, maybe.
My experience has just been, I think if you have tried this in the past and it didn't work, I find so many people when I say this to a friend, a peer, like, have you thought about talking to somebody, or have you got a coach or something? Almost inevitably, they say they've tried it, and they dismiss it right away. And there's not usually an opening to get back into that conversation with them at that moment, but because I'm on a podcast and they can't interrupt me, what I would say to anyone who's tried it and didn't have a good experience, that's literally like eating a meal that you didn't like and never eating again.
Right.
It's just insane.
I say it's like dating. You have to find a personality match for you too. You have to find someone that you feel drawn to, that you feel like really is holding space for you, and that you're going to be able to have a rapport. And I think that it's even been proven statistically and from data-based research that the most important part of therapy in general is the rapport you have with your therapist.
Oh, wow.
More so than any core methodologies or clinical approaches. Because if you don't have that, that person's not going to be able to hear you. And you're not going to be able to receive everything you need from that person as a therapist to be able to propel them to learn and grow. And so it's really important to do that. So I tell anyone in that same token who's saying, yeah, I tried it one for me, well, try someone else.
Yeah.
Much like the meal. Go try a different restaurant.
Yes.
Go order something different.
Yes, absolutely. You know? So I think I believe in it. And when I was mentioning the peer group concept that we talked about earlier, this is in tandem. I think the recipe for an amazing life that you want is being around people that are also living that life that you can learn from as a peer, provide value yourself, and having someone that can help you work through the things that you may not have someone else to discuss with, whatever that looks like for you in your life, to coach you through it, to be there for you, to listen to you while you figure it out. Those two things in tandem have got to be two of the however many things are required for an amazing life. I know those are two in the top of the list. And
I agree with that. And I'll take it a step further, that I think that when people integrate in their life things that help them get in that space of mindfulness, people that, whether it is you decide to focus on the wellness of your body and exercise, whether you were doing meditation, you're doing cold plunges, you're reading, you're learning, you're growing, you want to surround yourself with the like-minded people that we're talking about, that you pay attention to your body and mind connection, and you have this regulated nervous system. I think people that do all those things and combined with focus on their professional life are going to see some amazing results, versus if you don't have any almost respect for how your mind and body works, whether it's holding you back or is it propelling you forward. I think that's such a key thing that many people I see that are struggling are missing.
Yeah, here's why I think they're missing it. As the kind of person that jumps into it and jumps back out, the way I save myself, first of all, if you're listening, is I keep myself always committed to something, because I do fall out. So if I'm committed to seeing a therapist, if I fall out, I have to go see her next week anyway. Mm-hmm. So at least I can relax. I'm going to clean it up next week anyway. That's number one. But I think the other thing is I think that people don't see we have to take responsibility for your mental well-being.
Yes.
And how much of an impact everything that's occurring to you is occurring through your perspective, through your brain, your mind, whatever we want to call it. So I think it's what most of us are doing is we're just complaining about what we don't like until we take responsibility for it. And part of the responsibility is like the modalities that you were mentioning earlier. Mm-hmm. I think that it's just when you're fed up enough.
When you reach a breaking point.
Yes.
To say, this isn't working for me, so now I'm going to explore something that might.
The truth is, what human beings do is we complain about something up until the point where because we'd rather relive that misery, doing it to ourselves. Everybody listening to this has complained to themselves about something in their lives, to themselves every day. Recently, every day, we're all doing it all day long. Most of us, not everybody, but a lot of us. Majority. We're complaining to ourselves. Then you re-engage in that behavior that you were complaining to yourself about every other day or every day. Mm-hmm. You're going to start working out you're going to work out immediately at 6 a.m. right after you wake up. But at 6:05, you're like, just after my cup of coffee, and then the day slips and you're gone. Right. And every day you do that. That's that until you take responsibility for that craziness, that's something that a crazy person does.
It's true. Definition of insanity, right?
Right, exactly. So that's what until you take responsibility for that and to work with someone, I think that's the key, the jump off point, like you said, where they are tired of the same suffering and they're willing to make a change.
I'm hearing all these things you're saying. And I think we align on the way we look at life, as I'm hearing you say, and I'm echoing these sentiments with you. I know that I can learn so much from somebody like you. And I know that you're helping people in mentorship and things like that. What does it look like for people who work for you?
Oh, man. The truth they'd probably say is it's like sometimes like hell. No, really. Thank you for laughing. I'm not even kind of kidding. Here's the problem. I have an affliction.
Do share. Bring it.
Yeah. The affliction truly is that I am a perfectionist. And I have OCD, a subtle amount of OCD. More, it's just I somehow am wired to want things to be right and to be at a level that I would do them. This is going to sound somewhat narcissistic or arrogant, what I'm going to say, but in my mind, the things that I think I do really well at. Mm-hmm. And I expect the people around me to do them really well as well. Mm-hmm. until I check in that they're not me. So what it's like to work very closely with me is it's like working next to like a half machine, half robot or human that is just working and churning out data and material and getting things done. And not everyone else wants to live like that.
I hear you.
I don't even choose to live like that myself all the time, but I'm programmed for it.
But I know you're capable of great empathy, so I'm not going to let you slide on the narcissistic, arrogant comment.
No, I'm not. I'm not a narcissist.
I think,
obviously, by any definition, by any real definition. I mean, you can Google it and let me know. But what I mean by that is it's. I relate to when I'm doing work. This is one of the most relevant conversations in my life.
Okay.
Because all of my close relationships are dealing with one thing in common, and that's me. And it's thematic for sure, which is that like a child, sometimes I react automatically when things are not the way I expect, and the problem is my expectations are so freaking high because I just want them the way I want them. And the way I want them is what I believe is right or best for everybody, even the person doing it.
Okay.
So here's the beautiful part. These beautiful people give me so much grace because it's kind of hard to be upset with a guy who's like really mad that you didn't do your best.
Right.
And it's like, come on, you got to get better. Like and it's
you can do better than
you can
this.
do better. And so it's kind of, they give me grace most of the time because of that, because it's about them and about us and where we're going.
Right.
And I know people can tell the difference when it isn't about them. It's about making them wrong or a gotcha kind of thing. I use this American proverb, which is that even a dog knows the difference between being tripped over and being kicked.
Yes.
And so when I'm holding them accountable in a very difficult situation, they can tell mostly that it's not about them as people. It's about what the issue is,
right?
And their future,
and the goal, which I imagine is a commonly aligned goal.
Yes, absolutely. And lastly, what it is like to work with me is that when the closer people work to me, the more money they usually make more money than they've ever made, and they learn a lot.
So then it's a valuable experience, even though there might have been some sticky moments.
There will always be sticky moments because I have high demands unapologetically for myself and others around me. And now my delivery of those is what stinks sometimes, which is what I'm working on. But the demands are staying. I can't get rid of them for myself, so they're not going to go away for anybody else.
Yeah, delivery can be challenging because then the message is lost in the delivery at times.
Yeah, of course. I keep sacrificing. What I think is being more efficient is actually effective, losing effectiveness.
Right.
Because I think speeding it up and just being very direct is the way to get it done. Right.
But then you might lose those people that are connected with you in that moment.
Exactly. So many people who are probably relating to this right now. But I'm living this transition of being able to get this part of my life the way I want it, not the way it just happens.
And so how do you do that?
A big part of that's therapy. A big part of that is, when I say therapy, I also mean reflecting even alone.
Self-awareness.
Yes. And I've been meditating. I went to a course with my brother in Baja, Mexico called MEA, Modern Elder Academy.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've heard about it.
Not specifically, no.
Okay. Well, it was just on Oprah's top 50 things to do before you turn 50.
Wonderful.
And it's about
I'm already past 50, but maybe I can still do it.
Okay. Or it's her 50 list or 50 before you die or something.
Yes.
But in any case, we meditated there a lot in this retreat. And I decided when I came back, I was going to keep doing it just because I don't want to be the dumb. I'm realizing in my life at 47, so many of the things that people have said are actually true.
Isn't that crazy how that works out? Wow.
I wish they would have just said, no, this stuff is true. We're not kidding. This is
Do this right over here. Focus on this.
This is real.
Right.
We're not sure, but this stuff's real and true. And there's so much of that's happening right now in my life. Just reflecting back on where I am and about to be an empty nester and just my career and everything else and the economy. It has me thinking. And so I think the first thing I've had to do is, I said earlier, I said jokingly, all these things people have told us all of our lives, I'm realizing are true. Some of these ancient truths or, sacred truths, whatever you want to call them. I think what I've learned in business is that you can learn anything you want to know about how to grow your business if you listen to your customer, you listen to your banker, you listen to your investor. You listen to them, they're going to tell you how to improve the business by what their issues are in the business, right? But that also, I didn't know this in my life, that also applies to your interpersonal relationships. They're telling you what's wrong.
But are you listening?
No. Are you joking? No. No, I'm waiting to speak. So the first step in me taking control of this and having it the way I want it, not just the way it keeps happening, is taking responsibility for that. That people have been telling me about this and I haven't been listening. I've been thinking I was listening, but I really wasn't listening, that this is a real issue and I got to get it under control. It bothers people enough. I don't want people to be bothered by that. That's silly. That's dumb.
And so now you're going to listen.
And so now I'm going to listen. And partly I'm going to listen. And then partly the other things I've done is therapy to try to work on it. Meditating. When I went to MEA, the Modern Elder Academy, I've heard people a lot about meditating. I've tried meditating so many damn times.
Really?
And it just I can't stick with it. I don't have ADHD. I don't see the benefit and I want a return on my investment.
I think that the biggest problem I see with meditation is that people try to make it too complex. And so I always tell anyone who's struggling with it, simplify it. Because doing something in a meditative state is better than doing nothing because it seems as though you can't connect with it.
Okay, I'm glad you took it right where you did. Because when I went to MEA, Modern Elder Academy, they had us meditate every day. With some education. It wasn't just the meditation. So it was interesting. And then it was some breath work. But I thought to myself, I should try to continue this.
Yes.
And when I came back, that was in June. We're in October. I've meditated for 45 minutes a day, probably every day, but maybe 3 or 4. And here's what I will tell you. In my own anecdotal experiment, just sample of one in the experiment, I will tell you, I can notice for sure the gap in when I am receiving a stimulus and when I'm responding. And I told you just by coincidence, the biggest issue in my life is how for the interpersonal, the most important part of my life are my relationships.
Yes.
And those relationships are there's an issue that's taxing them and it's mostly how I react. And so I went to work on that. Well, one of the things I didn't know the source of working on this was going to be working on that space where I have an opportunity to grow, which I think Viktor Frankl has that famous quote, I think between stimulus and response lies a space or gap.
Yes, in man's search for meaning.
Yeah, something like I didn't say the quote right, but I think we get
close to it, yes.
the essence. And I will tell you that in the 3 or 4 months that I've now been meditating, or 3 months, I can for sure say I can notice. And it doesn't matter if I noticed. Other people are noticing, which is the most important part. And I'm not driving as bad in traffic.
But it carries over. If you really do meditate and you get used to being present and intentional, and that mindfulness becomes a part of you, I think it's impossible for other people not to see that. I think it really does kind of overflow into every part of your life because it's easier to maintain that throughout your day, when you get in the habit of getting into that space. It's a natural place for us to be. But we get too busy with our life to feel comfortable with it anymore.
Yeah, that's well said. When we were meditating in Mexico, one of the things that the teacher shared was we could hear the ocean. And he emphasized something really beautiful that really helped me. He emphasized that the sound of the ocean, which it was very calming, he said, this is the pace of life really. This is real life.
Not the frenetic pace we build.
Yes, this is real life. This is the pace of this planet.
Yes.
And what should happen here? There are a few days where the storms come in, but they go out and it gets calm, really calm again. And there are parts of the day where it gets a little bit exciting, but then it just calms back down. And he said, if you're ever living your life not at this pace, you're not really living your life.
It's so true.
Yeah, really beautiful.
One of my tattoos is riding the wave because it is like a wave. It's things will go up, things will come down. It will keep coming. Those waves are never going to stop.
Where is this tattoo? Are you going to show us?
No, I can't show that one. Show others, not that one. But it's that idea that it keeps coming. It never stops, And these things that you learn in meditating, the things you learn in being intentional and still, that goes over into everything because that need never stops. That's what we're wired to do. Our bodies want to be in that state of rest and that state of presence. It's just a natural thing, and we forget all about it because we all want to overachieve. or most of us want to overachieve. We want to learn the next best thing, to do the next thing, and to keep going and moving because we only have one life to live. But I often wonder, what kind of life do we want to live? One where we're constantly doing that, or one where we actually take time to reflect and be self-aware and present in the moment? So it's an interesting thing to balance.
I think that trying to tap into the skills that made someone an overachiever, using those skills and redirecting them to maybe even gamifying meditation is a good idea. Like, how many days in a row can you do it without breaking? Because if you're an overachiever, you're not going to not stop being that way, in my experience, as one. So the way to channel that is to put that work into philanthropy or set it up so that the achievements are in the areas of your own development.
Yes.
And I think that's your only hope.
I like that, though. I do. The more people start to give back even in that way, let's say you don't do any of the other things we're talking about, but you find that being charitable and having compassion and grace and recognizing that helping someone else is going to help you, I think that creates this, it's kind of like that momentum that you start to build about looking at life differently. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I met the Dalai Lama in 2014, and I had an opportunity to ask him a question.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
And I had a chance I just asked him a question he's answered many times, but I asked him in person, what is the secret to happiness? And he said contribution. And he said, even to a bug. He said, the next time you see a bug, you don't have to kill it. You could just have compassion for that bug, and you will be a little bit happier.
I can do that for a lot of things, but not roaches.
Okay, fair.
Spiders maybe,
it is Texas.
Not roaches.
It's Texas.
Not here. It's really been a pleasure to learn all these things. I've got to hit you up with our guest question. So every guest leaves us a question for the future guest, and the prior guest has this one for you. What is something that you do that puts you in a flow state?
Oh, I meditate is what I would say.
Really goes along with what we're talking
it does,
about,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's a lovely question. Perfect for me.
What would you like to say for someone else?
The next guest?
Yeah. What can you serve up for them as their guest question? It can be anything.
If there was one person in your immediate family that you had to get out of your family, get rid of, who would it be?
Woo! That's a fun one. Okay, that's going to be really interesting to see what the next guest has to say about that.
That's fun.
That is fun. Steven, it was fun having you on here,
Thank
really.
You.
And I feel like you had so much insightful information. So thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.